Yo, what up? How you guys doing out there today? This is your boy Roto Beast. I'm here with my boy Jeremy, aka DFS Dudes. We also got some special guests today. We have a couple of our buddies from the DFS 5 pack. We have my buddy Ryan and my buddy Matt out there. We're gonna kind of give you an NFL Week 3 kind of early preview of kind of a couple of guys that are really standing out early in the week to us. Me and Ryan are gonna do 2 picks for FanDuel, 2 picks for DraftKings for cash games. We got Jeremy, we got Matt are going to do 2 picks for FanDuel and DraftKings that are GPP plays. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we're at. So how's everybody doing out there today?
I'm doing wonderful. Been up pounding videos. I'm in the central time zone, whereas you guys are West Coast, so we're a little bit different. Been out pounding baseball and football and videos all day long. So let's jump into another one. I'm good to go.
Definitely. How's it going out there, Matt?
We're doing good, man. Living large over here. Real good week for the 5 pack last week, so we're trying to just keep that momentum going and just cruise into football.
Yeah, definitely. And Jeremy, you?
Hey man, one thing I want to say, congrats, Matt. That's a huge takedown. If you guys, just for our members, if you guys are not playing DraftKings and need something or a site to go look at, please check these guys out. Matt's coming off a huge takedown last week, won $50,000. These guys know what they're talking about. They do a great job putting DK stuff together every single day. They pound out videos. They do a write-up for you guys. They give core plays. I think Ryan could probably touch more on that when they pitch their site. But, Matt, congratulations, man. That's a huge takedown. Those are always life-changing moments.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate the kind words. Obviously, it's a real feel-good moment. Want to just continue that. As we always say, man, we're always looking at the next slate. So hopefully we can get another one of those soon. I know that I'm not sure it was a coincidence, it happened right after we started talking. So I'm excited about us working together moving forward, not going to lie.
Just to touch on that, that was baseball, GPP. That's kind of Matt's baby. He really takes the contrarian method to a whole new level, not going with just the same chalk that you're going to hear at half the other sites. Really goes out there and picks guys that aren't going to be as highly owned. I love baseball and I watch a lot of it, but this dude over here watches baseball like it's absolutely going out of style. So he can come up with some things. I mean, you made that 50K because guy whose name I can't even think of off the top of my head right now. That's how uncommon of a pick he was. Arcia, right? Of the
not even the best Arcia not even the best Arcia in baseball, and that's not really a compliment.
Right. So his double dog night was big, but either way, it was a lot of fun to be kind of talking to you as that happened, because when he took that 1-2 pitch deep to put you from second to first, that was a big moment.
Yeah, it was elating. A moment I'll never forget. I want to say one of the best moments of my life. I'm not sure my wife would love that, but it really is, to be quite honest. No one can take that from me. You know what I mean?
There's nothing like being up there in a sweat. There's nothing like getting the at-bat you need or being in the situation. Hopefully our members can do the same thing. Grab the picks. Make sure you guys check it out. Like we said last week on your guys' channel, we believe that the 2 memberships complement each other so well. There's so many things you can do as far as using the optimizer on our site, grabbing the picks on your guys' site, having a player pool, a core for DK to work with.
Absolutely. And for any of our customers or your customers who haven't been up there on a GPP finish, stick with it. It can happen to anybody. And there is very, very few feelings in life that can really rival what it's like either crawling up or trying to hold somebody down. Because we all remember the first time that it happened. I'm thinking like 3 or 4 years ago, my wife was out of town. It's Saturday night, and I'm watching the Sacramento Kings play at 11:30 Central and watching Rajon Rondo start hitting threes. Yeah, that's right. Rondo hitting threes to creep up that sharpshooter. And it was like my first experience like getting up there, and it is intense. So if you haven't been there yet, stick with it. When you do get there, it's really hard to compare it to any other feeling.
The funny thing is, right now, I can feel it, like Rondo shooting threes, like almost midnight, like you're creeping up, like I feel it. My blood is flowing, my juices are flowing, and that's just it's awesome. You can remember every little thing. I mean, I remember, honestly, there's nothing like the basketball one I had, just because it was like the first one there, talking to you the whole time. Man, those are fun. So let's try to get one in football this week, huh?
All right, so you guys ready to jump into these picks real quick and get it going?
Let's do it.
All right, so I'll start it off. I'm going to start first. I'm going to start at quarterback, FanDuel, with Deshaun Watson going against the New York Giants. The Giants, they're just not a very good team offensively or defensively. Cowboys, I'm a Cowboys fan. You can see we're not a very good team, and we had a pretty good offensive day going against the Giants. So this week you got Deshaun Watson. Last week he had a pretty good week. His price didn't move very much. 7,700, very fair price tag. While some of the other quarterbacks on FanDuel, they really jumped up price wise. Last week he went 22 for 32, threw for 310 yards, 2 touchdowns, and you know what we got to love from quarterbacks. He also ran 5 times for 44 yards. He got 24 fantasy points, so that seems like a pretty good day. But he also got one interception and lost 2 fumbles. So that's what 4 points right there. It could have been added to that 24-point total for the week, and he could have had a monster week. So for this week in cash games, I think that Watson gives you a really, really good floor. Going against the Giants, as far as, like I said, their defense isn't very good, and he gives you those extra points running as well. So that's going to be my first cash game play for FanDuel this week. What do you guys think about Watson?
I like Watson. I just want to say one thing real quick because I'm a big Watson guy, but it'd be remiss to not speak on this when we're talking about Watson. Did you guys see the end of the game when they were down 3 and they had the ball on the 50 with 17 seconds left, and he just completely, it was one of the worst time management situations I've ever seen. Did anyone see that?
I didn't see that one.
Houston has a history, though, of having just terrible time management in bad situations. I could think of, like, playoff games when they've had that. They don't manage the clock very well at the end of a game, and it's crazy to me considering where Bill O'Brien came from, where he came from. Where Belichick just they practice situation after situation after situation. So yeah, I mean, I saw it and I'm looking at it like, what are you doing?
Do you believe that?
No.
I mean, for you guys who didn't see it, there's 17 seconds left. They have the ball at the 50, down 3. Takes a snap, scrambles, keeps scrambling, keeps scrambling. Ends up throwing a 30-yard pass to Hopkins down the middle. They have no timeouts. Not even close to enough time to get to the line to spike it. I mean, he scrambled for 12 seconds, threw the ball with 7 seconds left. Hopkins caught it, went down. I've never seen anything like it. And I'm a Watson fan, but I can't help but think about that because that is not what I want to see from my number one quarterback. That being said, he gets his numbers regardless. And Ryan, I know we talk about that all the time. Real life and fantasy are just different. Watson is a guy, as you mentioned, Stefan, that kind of regardless because he runs, because he's so influential in their offense, he's going to get his. I agree.
He's got great weapons too with Hopkins and Fuller, which is a good thing. Going back to the time management thing though, do you guys ever play Madden football? You guys ever play online?
Oh yeah.
Does it not dumbfound you that the guys you play Madden online against seem to have better time management skills than half the coaches in the NFL?
Right.
Like I watch, obviously I'm a huge Packers guy. For anybody who just meeting me, I'm from Green Bay. I live a couple miles away from Lambeau Field. Like watching Mike McCarthy mismanage the clock over and over again. I wonder how these guys get to the professional level and whether it's a quarterback or it's a coach. Like there are dudes playing Madden online who can manage a clock better than you can and know what's going on. So that's kind of a side note. One thing I like for Deshaun Watson, and you kind of alluded to it when we were talking about the game against the Cowboys, the Giants' offensive line is so terrible that they can't sustain drives. This gives him more opportunities. So he gets to get on the field. And while the Cowboys offense is obviously very, very lackluster, time on the field can get you DFS points because they can't sustain a drive because they can't block anybody. So more opportunities equals more DFS points. That one's kind of a simplistic point, but something that people often overlook.
That's like the NBA angle, right? Like that's kind of like the NBA look, like opportunity equals points. And the one thing you touched on that kind of took the words out of my mouth was Dallas did have a decent night offensively. They have no weapons. We touched on that last week in a video that I think Steph and I did where we were talking about the Sunday, Monday slate, and we're like, who are you going to play for these games? And it was hard to pick players from Dallas because there's just no weapons on that team. Well, Watson's got a ton of weapons, right? He's got Lamar Miller's a guy who doesn't get mentioned enough. Pass catcher, can't run the football. They've got a decent pass catching tight end, and then they've got weapons on the outside. He's got way more weapons against an absolutely terrible team. And I mean, the Giants don't even look like they can pick up a blitz, a simple twist. One thing I'll say about time management is if you look at the teams that struggle with time management, the head coach is usually a play caller. And that's usually where they get lost in calling a play, kind of lose track of the situation, and they just don't manage the situation very well. But I don't have a problem with Watson, especially going against the Giants. And I think he'll be a really popular play, which, there again makes him a good cash game play.
Should we shift into DraftKings cash now?
Yep, let's go.
All right. So I actually put something together that I had up for ours that I think I'll share right here. There's my little pointer. I want this to come up, but it won't. Interesting. Here we go. All right. This is kind of annoying. Finally. So I like Patrick Mahomes from a Cash King angle in DraftKings, and I think most people can probably understand why that is. So he's 7,000 on DraftKings. Definitely took a price bump up from last week, which can be expected when you get a good matchup like this. You're at home, and you've just rattled off just a plethora of points your first 2 weeks. So he's averaging 35.1 DraftKings points for the first 2 weeks. This game has the highest implied point total of the week at 55. Through the first 2 weeks, the Kansas City games are absolutely crushing as far as points go. Why? Because their offense is electric and their defense isn't very good. So while San Francisco doesn't have the same offense Kansas City does, they should be good enough, especially if Goodwin comes back, to be able to push the ball a little bit and force Kansas City to throw. He just balled in Los Angeles and in Pittsburgh. Why do we think things would change in the home opener? One of the things I try to employ is the keep it simple, stupid method. That's why you see the word KISS right there. He's been excellent. Why do we think it would change this week going up against a less than stellar San Francisco team? One of my favorite points about it, too, is Andy Reid, and we've been seeing this now for almost 2 decades. He has a tendency to get very pass happy. Well, it's been working so far. He's got his brand new toy in Mahomes. He's got weapons for ages in Watkins, Kelsey, Hill. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I love his floor. I love his ceiling. I'm not one that tries to overthink things and tries to get cute. He's been the top quarterback in the league fantasy-wise for the first 2 weeks. No reason to think it won't continue into week 3. This is a guy I lock into my cash games, but I also think he's got a floor and tournament upside that you can play him anywhere. Eventually, the league will slow him down. I just don't see any reason it would be this week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, we've seen what the guy did last week, what he did the week before. I definitely think that, I mean, he's a really, really good play. I'm not really, too much into DraftKings. 7,000 doesn't seem like too bad of a price, though. FanDuel, he jumped up I want to say
he's 8,900.
1,800, yeah, like he jumped up a crazy amount on FanDuel. I didn't know his original price on DraftKings, but yeah, I mean, either way, I definitely like the guy, especially coming off a 6-touchdown outing for sure.
Yeah, he's special.
38 of 55, 582 yards and 10 touchdowns in his first 2 games. There's a lot to like about Mahomes. I couldn't agree more with you about Andy Reid. That was one of the big knocks when he had a running game and he had Donovan McNabb back in Philadelphia, is that he needed to find a running game. Andy Reid has a tendency to get pass happy. There's a ton of weapons around him. I love the pick. I'm not sure if on FanDuel I like him for cash, just for the thing, really touching on what Steph said with the price. I think at $8,900, the name recognition with some guys in other spots who have the sexy name, I think he'll be a lot lower owned in tournaments, or higher owned in tournaments than he is in cash. I don't know if people are going to go there this week in cash just because he's $8,900 and he's a top price quarterback on the board on FanDuel. But you can't argue with the pick. All the things you touched on are valid points, and his stats are there. I just wonder about him, how long he can sustain it. Is there any regression? The 49ers are a terrible defense. I picked them last week as one of my picks. I thought they were a little bit better, but they don't have the defensive backfield, and they struggle with man coverage. Anytime you struggle with man coverage, you're going to struggle to put pressure on a quarterback, and I think all of those things point to him having another solid Sunday.
Yeah, he's got a solid floor. And the one point that I don't think I've been brought up yet was we haven't even seen it that much. A guy can run. And those running totals, he's a dude that could bust off a 30-yard touchdown run like nothing. So if they try to overcompensate and they leave that open for him, there's just so many ways that he can get you. Now, the league will catch up to him. He's not all of a sudden going to throw 6 touchdown passes every single week. I just don't think it could be this week against San Francisco. One of these weeks, somebody good will really put a hurting on him. I just don't think it's going to be week 3. And as far as DraftKings pricing goes, yeah, he went up but he went up less than $1,000. So it wasn't like this major bump up. I just think it's a really high floor, and obviously we've seen the ceiling now. So, and I love the fact that Kansas City's defense is also not very good. So there's going to be points to go around. Kansas City is going to be a team on both sides you're going to be looking at all year long.
Yeah, no, I definitely like the Mahomes pick. So we ready to move on to the next pick?
Yeah, definitely. Why don't we move over to one of your GPP plays?
Okay, so go ahead, Jeremy. We'll let you go with your first FanDuel GPP play.
So the first guy I'm going to take GPP-wise is I'm going to go with Joe Flacco. I have a hard time playing Joe Flacco. I may play Joe Flacco once or twice a year in my player pool, period, just because there's not a lot to like about Joe Flacco. But this week, I like the way it lines up statistically. He's 57 of 89 so far this season, third most pass attempts. So they're throwing the football, 5 touchdown passes in comparison to Mahomes. He's got half the production from a touchdown standpoint, but he's just about equal to him as far as yards go. If you look at who they're going against in Denver's defense, Russell Wilson goes 19 of 33 for 298 yards and 3 touchdown passes week 1. Last week, Carr goes 29 of 32, 288 yards and a passing touchdown. I like the way it lines up. I think that he's nowhere on anybody's radar this week for a very low-owned quarterback play. Maybe you might even be able to make the argument that it's a pump play just because of his price and how low he will probably be owned. But I love the matchup. I absolutely love the fact that they don't really have a good running back situation there. And he's thrown the ball 89 times in 3 games. I just don't see, for $6,700, I don't see a better bargain. And you touched on opportunity, right, Ryan? I mean, opportunity's there for him to throw the football. I can't see them running the ball 30 to 35 times a game with what they've got in the backfield. They don't have an every down running back. At least they haven't just demonstrated. They've got a guy they're going to commit to as an every down running back they're just going to pound the rock with. So I love Flacco at $6,700 as a tournament play this week. And again, a guy I think that's going to be really low owned in a really good matchup at a really fair price, who allows you to pay up at some other spots for some of these weapons that are also on the board this week.
I feel like I can probably get on board a little bit more than my partner Ryan here for a couple of reasons. I know that you have a lot of respect for Alex Collins in the Baltimore backfield.
Not so far this year.
Okay, well, I more agree with Jeremy in the couple senses that I think no one's going to be looking at him at all. He's really cheap. I think that Denver probably scores a little bit in this game also. So I think this game is a little bit higher scoring than people think because they're just looking at Baltimore-Denver. I don't think it's as high scoring as Baltimore-Cincinnati, but we saw Baltimore be able to move the ball there. We saw them obviously dominate Buffalo. I don't love, I should say, any of Baltimore receivers to use them on a full slate like this. But all of them are sufficient enough to make Flacco viable here. So that's a point I like. So I don't disagree with you here. He's a guy that's not on anyone's radar. And I like the main point is that, if nothing else, you could view him as a punt play because he's so cheap.
And I think you kind of hit on it. He doesn't have that like elite number 1 wide receivers, but this is the best collection of wide receivers he's maybe ever had. Baltimore has been receiver deficient for his entire career. Anquan Bolden had his moments. And outside of that, who are we been looking at? They really haven't had anybody. He's also been extra motivated by the drafting of the kid Jackson. So this has given him a little extra motivation this year. Baltimore getting their butt kicked last week was good for his statistics, and it really helped him in the second half. We don't really know who Baltimore is yet. I don't think we really know who Denver is yet. So there is a lot up in this air in this game, and that can be good from a low ownership, low cost type of play. And Joe Flacco is the kind of guy, and he almost never on anybody's radar, but he does throw up the occasional big game. And with John Brown looking like a real nice, solid guy right there, you got Crabtree and the third wide receivers. I'm blanking on him for a second. Willie Snead. They definitely have better weapons there now than they've had probably in his entire career.
Right. Collins, and here's the thing. Collins has 16 carries for 48 yards in 2 games. And Buck Allen, I think, is at like 8 carries. He's at 10. So 10 carries for 25 yards. I just don't see that. That's not a commitment to running the football. And then Kenneth Dixon's on IR. So, I mean, you can't find – is this the week they wake up and say, hey, Denver's giving it up in the passing game. Let's decide to run the football. That to me – I love to look at previous history. I love to look at previous history, not from like a DVP standpoint, but a statistical standpoint, right? Like if one of the things, and I'll touch on NBA, we got NBA coming up in like less than 30 days, and it's kind of a carryover stat, right? I love to look and see what a team is giving up to a position from a statistical standpoint, like over their previous 2 to 5 games. We saw Russell Wilson last night. Seattle is an inept offense right now. They are not a good offense. The offensive line's not been really good in Seattle for a really long time. Russell Wilson's had to run around. Russell Wilson throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns against Denver. Joe Flacco, I think, has better weapons around him than Russell Wilson does right now. And I think that, you know, it's a home game for Baltimore. I can't see him making a commitment to the run. I do see him throwing it. Denver does have some weapons as well. And like you said, Matt, I think there could be some scoring in this game.
You might have better offensive weapons around you right now than Russell Wilson does.
Right. Right.
All right. So, Matt, you ready to let us know what you have for DraftKings?
Yeah, let's pull it up. Ryan, you want to pull it up? We'll do Jarius Wright.
Of course, it's giving me issues again. Stop doing this. All right.
All right. Gives us a brief commercial break for Dickey's Barbecue.
Yeah, there we go. They actually closed down in Green Bay, but every time you go in there, you got these big ass cups. So Jarius Wright is a guy we kind of talked about last week, Matt. So why don't you jump on in?
So first off, on DK, he's only 3,700, as we kind of talked about earlier. They've raised their pricing a little bit, so it's, you know, if guys aren't as cheap as they were last week, it's definitely not as week one, so a little bit harder to find value. Wright is a guy, and the first point we started talking about him a little bit a few days ago. He is, you know, he was a darling in Minnesota, kind of never got the reps he probably thought he deserved behind Diggs, behind Thielen. Now that Norv Turner is the offensive coordinator in Carolina, and he's a huge Jarius Wright fan, it's kind of opening up the opportunity for him. It doesn't hurt that Carolina is one of those teams without any weapons. Then you might not be as bad as Seattle, but damn, they're close. I mean, Funchess with no Greg Olsen, they don't have much. And speaking of Greg Olsen, with him out, you know, he's kind of their middle threat, their guy that will go across the middle. Wright has looked to fill that void. He looked good last week. He saw a bunch of targets. He caught the touchdown over the middle. He looked good. You know, as we just talked about with Baltimore, they got kind of blasted by Cincinnati. The Bengals are playing well. They're 2-0 for the first time in a while. Not crazy to think this game's a real good game. I know it's like a 3-point spread, so Vegas thinks so. And then one other point before I let you guys hop in and hear your thoughts. So obviously everyone saw that cheap shot that Cam took from Kazee. Well, the first guy in that little brawl or foray, I guess you should say, was Jarius Wright, new to the squad. I've seen it like 20 times now. I'm sure they've seen it 50 times. They know that Wright was the first guy in there. Might not mean much, but it can't hurt him. You know, got to be on Cam's good side right now, if nothing else. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, hey, he had his boys back. You know, Cam's going to think about that. I mean, 3,700 is just dirt cheap. I mean, it is what it is. All you need, honestly, you need 3 catches for 40 yards, and he's pretty much going to hit value. So, I mean, I definitely think that you're probably a little bit more of a GPP play, but at the same time, as a cash game player with a guy that cheap, I mean, I think we could even possibly maybe consider him for cash on DraftKings just at the cheap price tag. I have a quick question. What kind of has his targets been the past couple weeks?
He has 12 targets, 8 catches, 84 yards, and a touchdown, something in that neighborhood. I'm sure we could pull it up.
Okay. Yeah,
so production isn't crazy. Production isn't crazy, but it's pretty damn good for a 3,700 guy.
Right. 12 targets, 8 catches, 85 yards, 1 touchdown. He had 14.7 FanDuel points last week. The targets are definitely there. I agree with everything you said, Matt. And on FanDuel, at the price range he's at, which is $5,400, there's not a lot there for a wide receiver 3 this week as far as GPPs go. You're looking, he's the same price as Josh Doxson, Martavius Bryant, Allen Hurns, Kelvin Benjamin, Willie Snead. You got Jarius Wright, and the only other really viable play that I would look at this week in that $5,400, $5,500, $5,600 price range is Mike Williams. I love Jarius Wright in tournaments. I like to play a lot. I mean, at $3,700 on DK. That's a really good price. $5,400 on FanDuel. Look, we're looking for opportunity. We're looking for production. You can't argue with the fact that he's a receiver who will go across the middle. He's a receiver that he's got Cam's back, obviously, and Cam will probably look to reward him for that. But you don't have the weapons around Cam. It's the same type of deal like a Russell Wilson type deal we just got done talking about. There's no weapons around Cam Newton right now, and he needs guys to throw him the football. Or to throw the football too. I don't have any problem with this play in tournaments whatsoever. I don't think it's a cash game play, but that's why you and I are giving GPP picks, and those guys are doing cash. So like the pick a lot.
And I actually don't mind him in cash games either. I talked to Matt about this one prior to last Sunday, saying this is a guy to take a look at. I saw a nice little piece on him on the relationship that he developed with Norv Turner in Minnesota. And because they don't have any weapons in there, it's a very low-risk, high-reward type of play. He's going to get some targets. Christian McCaffrey can't be the only guy that you throw to, right? So there needs somebody who can go across the middle. Funchess ain't going across the middle. That's just not his game. So
neither is DJ Moore.
Right? Like, I don't love playing Jarius Wright in my cash game, but if this allows you to get, Michael Thomas and, another running back at a high price that you like, I'm okay with the risk versus reward on this one, knowing that just out of necessity, he should be part of the offense.
Yeah, I mean, I like him a lot. So for me, how I play, he's playable in all formats. But again, that's probably why we give GPP advice, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Probably a different set of guys and different parameters, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to move on to my second cash game.
Steph, actually, do you mind if, just because I got this pulled up, let's just switch it up. We'll go with my cash and then yours just because this is pulled up already. So here's a cash or a GPP play in our opinion, and that's Robert Woods of the Rams this week. 9 targets in each of the first 2 weeks, and this goes off the eye test. If you're only watching statistics, if you're not able to check out all the games, I've seen about 90% of each of the first 2 games, and Goff and Woods have just missed on several occasions. So while the statistics overall aren't really something that's gonna, really get you super excited, they've been so close to a couple of monster completions that could have really been game changers for him. The Chargers' offense is good. So the Rams may actually get some competition for the first time over the first 2 weeks that will cause them to actually need to throw the ball for 4 quarters. That's not a guarantee, as the Rams are obviously a really, really good football team. But this is our first opportunity to see just how good the Rams are, because they've had pretty cupcake matchups for the first 2 weeks. Now, on the off chance that the Chargers start off hot, if they put together a really good game plan for the first couple of drives, there's even some extra potential upside right here. With Brandon Cooks drawing the majority of the attention of the best cornerback from the Chargers, this is going to be an easier path with Robert Woods. This is a guy that had really good chemistry with Goff last year. I love the price drop that he got. For me, I like him in all formats this week, and he's going to be a mainstay of the 5-pack in probably all formats.
I love Robert Woods this week. I'll just, piggyback off what Ryan said, then you guys can hop in. I think he's an elite play here at 5,100 in all formats for everything that Ryan talked about. I've watched a lot of it. He looks in really good. He looks in sync with Goff, and as you alluded to, he just missed a couple of times. I think the Chargers, they're not as good as the Rams, but this is a big-time get-up spot for them, facing their now, same city rivals. This game is probably closer than people think. I know you guys can touch on that a little more. I'm not sure where your allegiances lie, but I know you're in that neck of the woods. So I see a little more of a competitive game here, and Woods just fits any type of game flow. Thoughts?
Go ahead,
I
Jim.
can get on board. Here's the thing with Woods. I actually tossed back and forth a couple of receivers at that price point on FanDuel. Robert Woods was one of them. 18 targets, 118 yards receiving. And last week, one of the picks I gave was Melvin Gordon. And one of the reasons I liked Gordon was he hadn't scored a touchdown yet for all of the love he had gotten, right? And he went off. So Robert Woods, 18 targets. He's getting the attention of Goff. Goff's going to him. He's part of the game plan. I like him because of kind of the touchdown thing this week, right? When's he going to score a touchdown? I think it's this week. Robert Woods has big playability too. He's a guy who can take an 8 or 9 yard slant. He can take a comeback, and he can break it for an 80-yard play. So I like Robert Woods. I think his price is cheap for the amount of targets he's seeing. Good mid-range play on FanDuel. I do like Woods this week as well. he almost made the cut for me as one of my picks. So I'm glad somebody covered him.
So I like the fact that you kind of brought up his skill set. He's not great at any one thing, but he's pretty good at everything, which is kind of nice. He can go across the middle. He can go deep. You already alluded he can take a slant pattern into the house. There's no one thing he does that is great, but he's pretty decent at every single thing. And he got a big price drop on DraftKings this week. So like for us, he works in all formats, and he's going to be a guy that we almost hesitated to bring up only because we like him so much, and we almost wanted to save him for all of our paying customers, but we thought we'd throw it out there this week for everyone.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that Woods is a solid player. Like you guys said, I mean, for cash games, he's going to give us a solid floor with the targets. He's due for one of those monster games as well, so he does give us some upside. So I definitely could get on the bandwagon of going with Robert Woods. So I'm going to move on with my next FanDuel cash game play. It's going to be Gio Bernard. We got Mixon out for a couple weeks. His price tag is very fair, $6,400. Last year when Mixon was out for a couple games and Bernard got the reins as the starting running back, he was pretty much a 3-down back. Didn't really come off the field. I mean, last season he started 3 games, and in those 3 games he rushed for 208 yards. He caught 133 yards, so 341 yards total combined. He had 16 catches and 2 touchdowns. So like I said, he was a big time workhorse when Mixon was out last week. Mixon is going to be out for a couple weeks this week. I don't see why we don't go back to the well with Bernard as the main focal point of the running game, and coming out. Catching passes on 3rd down as well, going against Carolina. I think this game is going to be a pretty close game against Carolina. Carolina hasn't showed that they're going to beat anybody's ass. It's going to be kind of a grind back and forth game on both sides, as it was with the Cowboys and with the Falcons. So I really like Gio Bernard this week for your FanDuel cash games.
I will say his pricing sounds better on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings, because on DraftKings he got a big – like he's expensive up there from running backs. Again, kind of like another guy we're about to talk about, but I like him. I don't love him as much as I thought I would, because when I popped open the slate, my initial thoughts were just go there right away. But DraftKings really jacked up the price on him, so I don't think he's necessarily a necessity on that site. And that's one of the differences between the two of them, and why you got to know your sites, why you got to know how the payouts work, and you have to know kind of like your ratio. If you played week 1, and that was your first time playing NFL DFS, and you saw those cash lines with all the chalk blowing up, I mean, it's tough to evaluate that. Last week, cash lines were much more realistic to what you should expect. DraftKings was like 137. We just squeaked by on that one, but you know what? A win is a win. I don't know what it typically is on FanDuel, but week 2 was much more realistic of what you should expect for a lot of the new players out there.
Yeah, it was the same thing on FanDuel as well. It was probably like 20 points lower, to cash on your cash games compared to week 1. And then, like you said, I mean, it was all about week 1, the chalk went off. Week 2, the chalk didn't do so well. So if you had those couple, lower owned guys that kind of, that would really help you get by. For us, we got by with the fact that we faded Kamara, who got like 14 fantasy points, and we ended up going with Gurley, who was $100 less, and he got us 30 fantasy points. So that was the big difference for us in cash games last week, is that we did get away with, going with a little bit lower owned guy.
And that's a great side note right here for both your customers, our customers, and anybody who's considering joining. We both did a dual podcast on Tuesday, right? We talked over a lot of plays. By week's end, a lot of those guys were out and a lot of new guys emerged. So we like to come on here and talk, and we like to advertise our services and talk about what you can play. But DFS is an evolving thing. I mean, we do baseball morning podcast. Shit changes by nighttime, and that's one day. Imagine how things change in the week. So final plays come out at the end of the week, and that is reserved for us and for you guys, for paying customers, which we would love all of you to be. We get it if you just want to stick around for the free stuff, but the best information comes out the closest to lock.
Interesting point that you say that, because a guy that we liked for tournaments kind of off of a pivot, off of a cash game pick was Josh Gordon, and Josh Gordon's not even with Cleveland anymore. And by the time we got to Friday, he was inactive, and now he's been traded away. So I think one thing to mention with us doing this on a Tuesday is we're taking an early look from 10,000 feet at the slate at kind of some spots that really look good early. But injury reports don't even come out till Wednesday. We really have no clue until Wednesday who's popping up, who's out, who's in, who's game time decisions. And then one thing that I think is a lot different to mention to everybody who's a member, non-member, getting free information is the main difference between NFL and why it's imperative to look later in the week is it's the only sport that guaranteed before lock, leading up to lock, we know who's in and who's out. I mean, NBA and MLB can have scratches at the very last second. The NFL has a rule that an hour and a half before kickoff, they have to announce active, inactive. So that, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time frame is huge, and information changes leading right up to that time. And at least with NFL, we've got a shot to make moves, which is different than any other sport. Getting back to the pick, I actually, if you look at statistically, Carolina's given up 264 yards rushing, and look who they've played, right? Which running back's gone off? Has anybody actually gone off against them? It's kind of crazy that they're 25th against the rush after 2 weeks, giving up 264 yards rushing, and you can't say anybody's gone off. I know Zeke didn't go off, right? Zeke didn't have a 25-point monster game. So they are giving up rush yards. And then the thing about Bernard is he has the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. He only got 6 carries after Mixon went out, but he did get 7 targets. So his ability to contribute in the pass game, it's kind of like a guy we liked early in the week last week, which I think you mentioned, Ryan, was a Dion Lewis, right?
That's also a great example of things changing right there.
Absolutely.
We talked about him. Then 3 offensive linemen were out, and Tevin Coleman came out, who was just clearly the better play for cash games as the week progressed.
Right, exactly. Perfect.
Quick side note, just Ryan, real quick. We haven't gone over it yet. I was shocked at how low-owned Kamara was in my cash game.
Yeah, so was I. I still liked him a little bit better than Antonio Brown. And what we said on the cash lineup review was Kamara and Brown both kind of sucked. And so that was a weird situation where 2 wrongs did make it right. It was okay because neither one of them really did very much anything.
Right. Mm-hmm. All right. So we ready to move on to our – what are we at? Jeremy, you got your GPP play?
Yeah, so a guy that you guys already mentioned, right, it was Robert Woods, and it's a guy that I almost grabbed because I like him so much as well. I think there's a good group of receivers in this price range. A guy I'm going to go with is Sammy Watkins at $6,200. Big play capability for Sammy Watkins. We have not seen him score a touchdown yet. 12 targets, 9 receptions, 121 yards in his first 2 games. He had a lot of possession receptions again in the Pittsburgh game. And what I mean by that is he had a lot of possessions that kept the chains moving. And you start looking at a guy who can be a dependable receiver. Quarterbacks love to trust the guy. They can't stand to throw over to a guy and he drops the ball or can't get open, etc. They move off really fast. When you start seeing a receiver be that 3rd down, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6 guy that they constantly keep going to, that's a move the chains wide receiver. I think it's only a matter of time before we see the big play from Watkins. I know that there's other playmakers on the field, but I think Watkins, I'm looking for the touchdown this week out of Watkins. That's exactly what I'm looking for. The game is the highest over-under on the board at 56. The Chiefs have the highest implied total of the week. You could absolutely pair him up with Mahomes and pair those two together. If you were doing a complete game stack, I'd have no problem with you stacking the 2 of those guys with Kelsey, Hill, Kareem Hunt, and making it a complete team stack. I just think Watkins is going to score a touchdown sooner or later. He's getting targets. The price is very fair at $6,200. It's kind of a borderline mid-tier to value play there. And he's a guy that, again, just like Flacco and for tournaments, he's going to be off. I think he's off the radar. I think just because of the guy's history, people are reluctant to play Sammy Watkins, not knowing that, is he going to play a full game? Is he going to get banged up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And he's had a tendency to drop the football as well in his past. So it's a guy I don't look to be very high owned. It's a guy I think's in a great spot, high over under. The opportunity is there. And at $6,200, I think it's a receiver we get for a wide receiver 3 spot that's extremely low owned.
You can talk me into anything Kansas City related. Against them, for him, this team is gonna move the chains. They are a great team to look at with both them and their opponents because this team is gonna have offense. They're not a great defense, and they got a lot of weapons. I mean, underrated weapon still, because I think you're right that a lot of people still don't like Sammy Watkins, but the guy can play, and now he's not asked to be the number one. He's going to be the third option on that team because you got Tyreek Hill, who is a difference maker. Travis Kelce,
Kareem Hunt.
He's a running back though, so I was more thinking about the wide receivers.
Yeah, but I'm just saying if you're talking about options on the team, and he's like the fourth guy easily there. And we talked, I know before, Watkins was a guy that was on a lot of tournament-winning teams this weekend, so he's definitely on my radar. I think that you kind of saw it last week, just speed, and they got a lot of speed there, and they're going to try to find ways to get Watkins the rock, and he's a kind of a good fit for Reed's system.
He looks different too. I know last week we talked about Adrian Peterson, how Adrian Peterson looked like he was a linebacker and just in great shape. Watkins looks different. He looks like he's in really good shape and he's really motivated. That's what caught my eye in that Pittsburgh game was the guy moved the chains. He looked explosive. He caught a comeback pass on the sideline, made a great move to the outside, broke an arm tackle. I think it was like third down and maybe 13 yards, and huge catch, and he moved the chain. So I like explosive players, especially for tournaments, because you got to have touchdown upside, and I think that the price and the upside is there with Watkins this week.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say. I definitely think that Watson is a really good play. The only reason I would definitely say he is GPP play is just because, like everybody else is saying, they have so many options. You know what I mean? It can be, a perfect example is Kels. Week 1, he had 1 catch, didn't do nothing. Week 2, he absolutely went off. Tyreek Hill, he went off week 1. Week 2, he didn't necessarily have a bad game, but he didn't have the same game as week 1. So it's like there's a lot of options. But yeah, Watkins is definitely going to have one of those monster games. Same thing with Kareem Hunt. I mean, he's been kind of quiet the first couple of weeks as well. I mean, he's due for one of those games as well. So, I definitely think that Sammy Watkins is a solid GPP play, especially stacked together with Patrick Mahomes.
One of these weeks, and I'm not a Kareem Hunt guy. Like, I know Matt still really, really likes Kareem Hunt. I'm not a huge Kareem Hunt fan, but he is going to be the guy that wins people GPPs because he's going to break a big run, and then the other team is going to struggle, and they're going to pound the rock, and he's in for a monster day. I don't think it's this week, but one of these weeks, right, Mahomes and Hill and everybody's going to not do much because it's going to be all about Kareem Hunt. You just got to try to find that week. Picking it out, it's going to be tough because Andy Reid is pass happy, but one of these weeks, Hunt is going to make a huge difference for somebody.
Right. I mean, it's funny that you're just not a Kareem Hunt guy anymore. Like, dude was so good last year. Like, lest we forget, like, he was the darling. He was the Patrick Mahomes, like, at this time last year.
Right.
I really was going to go, honestly, I was going to go with Kareem Hunt over Watkins. I just have a feeling about Watkins in a wide receiver 3 spot this week. He's going to be really well. But if you watch the 49ers and the 49er Detroit game, Detroit ran the ball not terribly. They had some gash plays, and I think that this is the week to play Kareem Hunt in GPPs. I'll kind of throw that in there as a bonus pick, if you will. I just think that this is that sneaky week that you guys are kind of alluded to where Kareem Hunt's going to win somebody a tournament. He's just on the fringe of busting a couple of runs, and I don't think the 49ers front 7 is good enough to deal with it. And it feels like the perfect storm, right? Kind of from an ownership standpoint where Mahomes has thrown 10 touchdown passes. He just threw 6 of them. His price has gone up. It just seems like, Tyreek Hill had a huge game week 1. You had Kelce have a huge game along with Mahomes in week 2. It just feels like the under-the-radar, quiet guy that could just absolutely smash and win somebody a ton of money this week is Kareem Hunt.
I agree with a lot of that. My only hesitation with him is Mahomes doesn't throw the ball down to the check down. Doesn't seem to have to the way Alex Smith did. And Kareem Hunt was a beast for the first 5 weeks last year. But after that, he was kind of a fantasy no-show with the exception of the game against the Chargers.
And that was late. He busted that run late against the Chargers at San Diego last year. I agree with that.
Right. Like if you look
real late. Yeah, he did.
If you look through his game log from last season, like those first 5 weeks, he was the man. And then after that, he had that long, late touchdown run against the Chargers. That was a lot of what he did. There was a lot of games, and it goes back to what we talked about with Andy Reid getting very, very pass happy. Look at those games. 11 carries, 9, 9, 9. It just wasn't as consistent. That's one of the areas where I get really gun shy on him because was that not being shared? I don't know if I had that shared or not. I'm just saying, like, that's where I get gun shy on Kareem Hunt. It has nothing to do with Hunt's talent. It has everything to do with Andy Reid getting so pass happy.
Right. I agree. All right, Matt, finish us off.
All right, so now I really almost want to bring up Kareem Hunt here, but I guess I'll go with my original guy. I just kind of want to do that to spite Ryan, but I know he wouldn't have that. So we'll talk about the guy I originally had, and that's Latavius Murray, who doesn't seem like a guy you'd want to play in tournaments, but on DK I like him a lot this week for a multitude of reasons. One, Cook got hurt at the end of the game last week. I know he didn't come back in overtime. Nothing major. Groin injury, he said it was, cramps, hamstring, who knows. But coming off the ACL with this injury, why would they push him in a game where they are 80-point favorites? It just doesn't make sense.
I thought it was
I think, yeah, right. Yeah, it's now been moved. Sharp Money has moved it to 82. So it's one of those situations where we've seen how bad Buffalo is and has played this year so far. In Minnesota, bad spot for them. Lots of carries in the second half of the game. They should be up. You figure this is a game where he wants to get his, pile on numbers type of spot for him. Because he's higher priced than he probably should be on DK at least. He makes for a really intriguing play in tournaments. When you first pop open the slate, I know Ryan and I both kind of thought that he would be somewhere in the 4 to 4,500 range, or significantly higher than that. He's priced up with the guys like Gio Bernard, who will be a lot higher owned, who is probably in a better spot being the lead dog and only guy there. However, if Minnesota gets up early here, I think Murray can get a lot of carries in this spot. He's not a scrub. Is he a great back? No, but he's not a scrub. We've seen this guy have good productive years before. It's been a while, but last year he filled in with McKinnon admirably. I think that he's a capable running back in a spot like this. And lastly, and I'm sure you guys will agree with this, even if you don't agree with the other stuff, Buffalo is trash. They suck. They will give up yards here. This is a letdown spot for Minnesota after tying Green Bay. I fully admit that. I wouldn't lay the 17 points with Ryan's money here. But that doesn't mean that Minnesota won't win this game and should be able to win it handily, even if they start off slow, because Buffalo is just that bad. Thoughts?
There's such a talent discrepancy between these two teams. Minnesota is arguably one of the best teams in football. It's really hard to argue that point. And Buffalo, is right there with Arizona, is the worst team in football. So there is going to be a big point discrepancy here. One of the reasons that we shied away from Melvin Gordon last week was because you didn't know how many touches he was going to get. Now, he got a ton of touchdowns in the first half, and he was a great play. But Austin Eckler ended up getting a ton of touches later in the game. And that's kind of what we see with Latavius Murray here, is the potential for a lot of touches later in the game because Minnesota should win this one handedly. Buffalo is really, really bad. And why force it with Cook? Cook is kind of the game changer. He's a guy in the passing game. He's their better running back. But if you're up by a bunch of points and he tweaked his hammy, even if it's just a minor tweak, and he's coming off of an ACL injury, if you're up by 20 points at halftime, why not just give the ball to Murray and give him an opportunity to get his?
Yeah, so real quick, we're talking about Buffalo sucking. When your player retires at halftime just because they're getting their ass whooped and doesn't ever want to play anymore, your team sucks. It is what it is. You know what I mean? There's no way around it. I like Murray. I did not look at Murray at all after you guys' points, though. I didn't know Cook got hurt a little bit. If Cook's a little bit hurt, they want him for the longevity of the season. There's no point of, having him for 5 or 6 weeks like they did last week. Like last year and he got hurt. Even if Murray got us 10 carries and a couple goal line carries, that's something that we could take. Definitely low owned if he got us, we'll say 10 carries for 50 yards and a touchdown. That's 11 fantasy points. I think that would be a solid outing just to kind of hit value. Somebody low owned. So I definitely think that Murray's a solid GPP play for sure.
And I do want to reiterate, we're talking about deep GPP play. Like if you're playing in smaller tournaments where it's almost closer to a cash game, that's not what we're looking for. Some of these tournaments where you need somebody to be different, we're talking about that one guy where not a lot of people to go to. Because as Matt alluded, when I popped open the slate, I was already, for the reasons I looked at Eckler last week, I'm like, oh, what's Murray at this week? And I was thinking $4,000, 4,500. And you saw 5,500 right next to Gio Bernard. I mean, Gio Bernard's the better play. No question about it. But sometimes the better play isn't the right play. And that's one of the funny parts about DFS. It's especially true in baseball. You know what I mean? Where, like, I've told you guys, Matt, we talk about this all the time. Some of my best winning days in baseball are because I make plays that are not the best play on paper. This is one of those. He could get a lot of touches in the second half because we can't say it enough. Buffalo is really bad.
When you get touches in football, and it's not like baseball, we talk about that all the time, and then I'll let you touch on it, Jeremy. If he's getting touches like we think he's going to get in the second half, he's 2 big ones away from being the leading running back on the slate. Like, he's not the best running back, and that's doubtful to happen. But when you're telling me that that's a possibility, I have interest in tournaments.
Absolutely. And the thing is that I love looking at players that their price goes way up and the spot can still be good, because that means ownership is typically going to be low. And if the opportunity is there, then last week on your guys' channel, we talked about the whys, right? Well, there's a couple of whys there for you right away, right? One thing that everybody's mentioned how bad Buffalo is. The thing about Murray, and we've also mentioned it's early in the week, right? We don't really know what's going to happen with Dalvin Cook until tomorrow when an injury report comes out. Is it really a cramp? Is it what was it? Well, if it was just a cramp, I think you alluded to it, Ryan, with the ACL deal. If it was just a cramp, you felt that you needed to be precautionary enough about it to hold him out, and he didn't come back for just a cramp. So how much do you push him this week in a game where you're 17-point favorite? I agree with the Austin Eckler points as well. Latavius Murray is a very serviceable running back. Very serviceable running back. He runs.
Great word to describe him.
He's a downhill runner. There's no reason to play Cook this week if there's anything that has to do with anything about his leg or the ACL. There's a lot of science, not to go too far off the reservation here, but there's a lot of science that has to do with weak hamstrings and their role they play in ACL injuries. If it is a hamstring, injury, cramps are from fatigue one way or the other. I just don't see a reason why they play him. And again, we're on Tuesday. We have no idea what happens by Saturday, right? And if he doesn't play, for all of the reasons you guys listed, his price jumping up, the Gio Bernard situation, I think for tournaments as the week goes on, if news goes against Cook playing and the share of carries goes up in Latavius Murray's favor, I think he makes a outstanding RB2 play for tournaments.
And if Cook doesn't play, he becomes an instant cash game guy, for example. There's a lot of things to take a look at right there. So we talked about the injury that Cook, that was a real injury. That's an ACL. That's a bad injury. And we talked about this with Todd Gurley with week 1 with the Raiders, or the Rams didn't use Todd Gurley in the first half against the Raiders because they thought they would roll, and then they didn't. And at halftime, it was a really good game. So they figured, oh, shit, we got to win this game. Let's give the ball to Gurley in the second half. When you're a team like the Rams or the Vikings and you fully plan to play at least 1 or 2 playoff games this year, you got to make sure you protect your guys. As anybody who's ever played running back, it is a tough position. That's why guys don't play much past the age of 30. Keep your young stud on a pitch count and give it to the old wily veteran who wants the opportunity to get out there and ball. He signed a contract for a reason. You use the word serviceable. I love that word for him. He's not great. He's not flashy, but he's not garbage. He can play the game. So let him rack up those carries in the second half. When you said you wouldn't bet the over on 17, Matt, I could feel like you could actually bet that fairly comfortably, because this is a situation I wouldn't. I'm just saying, like, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Minnesota wins 40-10, because they are just so much better than Buffalo.
Okay, so 2 things. One, that wouldn't surprise me, no, because Minnesota's way better. But I also feel like Buffalo, after Vontae Davis retiring at half, will band together and have a good week this week. It's either that or they're already jumped off the ship, which who knows? I mean, I'm not talking about betting Buffalo here. I just won't lay the points. But either way, that's really a non-story. What I'm thinking about here, and I haven't mentioned this to you yet, and it's kind of, I think you might get on board, which is rare in football. I almost like Murray more in tournaments if Cook plays.
Oh, for sure. Without question. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Yeah,
definitely. Okay, good. Because, like, no one is going to go there if Cook plays. And
if Cook is out,
Murray,
I was gonna say if Cook is out, Murray's instant cash game lock.
Yeah, even at 5,800.
Yeah.
Okay.
He becomes Tevin Coleman last week, only against a worse team.
Right. Straight up.
Yeah, so I just hope that like people haven't really heard of the Cook's injury and it stays under the radar and he plays and it's not much of a big deal is made out of it. But like they're really not going to play him all that much. I don't know. It's like you've said, it's something to keep an eye on.
I can totally see the scenario play out where Dalvin Cook is active and is so limited it's not
right.
Even, because for one, I think look, we're only approaching week 3 here, right? We're still there's a ton of teams in the NFL that we don't know what their identity is yet. That still remains to be seen. I think that as we go through the season, Minnesota's identity is going to be throwing the football. They just paid a lot of money to get Kirk Cousins. They've got 2 really, really talented wide receivers. Their tight end is a huge target. I think as the season evolves, we're going to see that that's who they are. That they're a throw it first football team. They're a throw it to run it football team. I can see the scenario play out where Dalvin Cook is active. They don't use him very much. He's very limited. And then they get up, 21, 28. Look, you want to talk about Vontae Davis? Listen, from my standpoint, honestly, when I heard this happen, the first thing that popped in my mind was when he was on Hard Knocks and the Dolphins traded him and he couldn't get anything out of his mouth besides I need to call my grandma. I was like, did the dude need to go call his grandma and say but
that was bizarre.
What's going on there in that locker room when a dude can't be a man and like come say, look, fellas, I can't do this anymore. Like I'm out. I've had enough. He just left. Like I
that's way more on him though than that locker room.
Out.
That's way more on him than the locker room though. Like I don't feel like we can put that. I mean, I guess that's for argument's sake, but like I mean, I don't know. I think that's an awful look for Vontae Davis. I think that Buffalo plays well this week. Whether or not they win or cover the 17, who knows? Because they do suck. But they're still an NFL team, man. Like I know Ryan's sitting there like they have no chance.
They could cover the 17. They're not winning. I would love it if they won because I'm a huge Packer fan and I hate the Vikings because I lived in Viking country for 10 years. They're not beating Minnesota.
Where I'm coming from with this is when a guy just walks out on his teammates, he's either been a huge individual and got called out at halftime and he just quit, or there's a lot of finger pointing going on in that locker room and he just said, I don't need this. I'm out. Whatever happened, there's something going on in that locker room where a guy couldn't be a man and just say, fellas, he could have said he was hurt, dehydrated. He could have done all kinds of things. Team doctor could have bailed him out. He just left. I'm done. I don't think that there's anything good going on in Buffalo right now, and everybody's already touched on it numerous times about how bad they actually are. This is one of those situations where I wonder if the University of Alabama could roll in there and be competitive with them.
My God, my buddy was just saying that. Like one of my buddies who I watched Sundays with on NFL that he's the buddy I was talking about that won the tournaments with like 47 other people, the same guy. He was literally just making the case that this is Buffalo versus Alabama would seriously be only like a 6-point line. And I disagreed with him because it's NFL versus college. But there are people who really feel that way right now.
Who wins? Buffalo against Arizona.
Against who?
The Cardinals, who didn't get past the 50-yard line last week until the very last drive with 30 seconds to go.
You know who wins? The Browns. We're not talking about them here.
They're the worst team in the NFL.
Who is?
Buffalo. I think that's the only thing they win is the contest of who's the worst team in the NFL. There's not a lot of talent on the roster. Now, I thought you said Alabama, and I was going to say there's still an NFL team that would probably be a competitive game, but I would still take Buffalo in that one. I'd probably watch more of that game, Buffalo, Alabama, than I will of Minnesota, Buffalo. I can tell you that.
Does Buffalo, Arizona not sound like a Thursday night football game? You're like, oh, you're going to give us literally the worst boring match.
Oh, they're going to flex it. Yeah, they'll flex that one.
Look at this week. You got the Jets against the Browns Thursday night. I mean, come on.
I'm interested in that one, though. I am interested in that. I have some interest in that game. I think that's got more excitement than Buffalo playing anybody does.
All right, guys. So are we getting off track, talking about how bad Buffalo is for sure. So real quick before we, I'll get you guys your final thing. I just want to quickly recap.
I was gonna walk off real quick like Vontae Davis. I was just gonna like.
Fuck it, I retire. I'm out.
So just a quick recap. So for cash games, FanDuel wise, we said we like Deshaun Watson, and we like Giovanni Bernard. For DraftKings cash games, we like Patrick Mahomes, Robert Woods. And then for GPP wise, FanDuel, we like Joe Flacco, and we like Sammy Watkins. And then for DraftKings GPP, we like Jarius Wright for Carolina, and we like Latavius Murray for Minnesota. Those are kind of our picks that we touched on for the day. Hey, we appreciate you guys coming on our show and helping us out and giving our viewers some extra opinion besides just watching me and Jeremy all day do videos. If you guys haven't checked out our optimizer out there, check it out at www.dfscheatsheet.com. Complete optimizer, tons of content like this video. We want to get some more content up with the DFS 5-pack guys if we can as well. I want you guys real quick tell us about your website before we get out of here.
All right, our website. So one of the reasons we felt like we could complement one another is you guys have more tools on your website. There's just more stuff. There's more things that you can build lineups with. There's an optimizer, and you guys are FanDuel based. We're primarily DraftKings based, and our whole thing is lots and lots of podcasts. We do those all day long. But the other thing is we're more of a simplistic view of the DFS world. We do a write-up at the end of the day. And if like you're getting done with work and you want to play baseball and basketball, like it is hard to do the research on those sports. There's a lot that goes into it. And if you just want to set a lineup and be competitive, you can come read our summary at the end of the day. It'll have a core group of guys that we're setting our lineups around, and then like a skinny down player pool to choose from. You don't have to look through guys like, I don't have a bad play off the top of my head, but we'll just skin it down, give you a couple handfuls of good players at each position you can take a look at. That way there is variance. It sucks. If you just do straight lineup sharing and you're doing it for GPPs, you don't want to split, your winnings 10, 15, 20 different ways. So we got to create a little bit of variance, but it's more of a simplistic view. So they complement each other because on days you're busy, come check us out. On days you want to put real time and effort and you want all the tools to build, your multi-entry GPPs, go check you guys out, mix and match the two of them. It's kind of the way that I look at it. We have private Facebook groups for all of our customers for a place to congregate and talk. We'll post some updates there. And really, I think one of the things that we all have in common, we just want to keep it real with you guys. We play who we talk about. Like we talked about on these free shows. Yeah, information changes. But at the end of the night, we play who we talk about. We'll stand by what we say. And we're just here trying our best to help you guys win.
Definitely. Jeremy or Matt, you guys got anything for us?
Go ahead, Matt.
Not me. We pretty much covered it all. We love doing these joint videos. We're excited to do more stuff. Hopefully we can get another big win here soon.
Absolutely. And one thing that I'll just add to this is, far as the two sites working together, one thing I mentioned on your guys' channel last week was you can go and literally get a complete slate breakdown and then go over to our site, plug in DraftKings information, and optimize around their player pool. One thing that I know they do is they give you a core, and Ryan, you talked about it last week, where you may give 2 options at quarterback, 2 options at running back. You got to pick this guy or that guy, and then you guys elaborate on your pool and the rest of the piece. You could absolutely go in, build 2, 3, 4 cores off that, generate 5 to 10 lineups, and then throw 35, 40, 50 lineups into a GPP. It's an absolute compliment. The two sites complement each other so well. And then just from a knowledge standpoint, I'll touch on research really quick. If you don't, that's our whole goal, period. I think the 4 of us combined and the 2 sites, right? Let's make this easy for our members. There is a ton of time that if you want to be profitable at daily, there's a ton of people putting a ton of research in. If you don't have the time to do it, you're just throwing money in to try and win a lottery ticket, you're going to redeposit a lot. Come to a site where guys take pride in their research. We have no motivation other than trying to keep the game healthy and trying to teach people how to not lose money. And we wouldn't pair up with anybody, and I'm sure you guys wouldn't pair up with anybody who we felt or you felt was in it for any other reason than just trying to grow the game of daily because we absolutely love the game of daily and want to stay around.
Right. We want to help keep money in your pocket. Now, if you play for $1 a weekend for football, yeah, it's probably not worth your money. I'll admit it. You're not going to get enough out of it because the odds of profiting whatever the monthly fee is off of a couple dollars, it's not realistic. But I know a lot of, like, I look at our customers, a lot of them play more than I do. I'll play for a few $100, early on in the season. As the season progresses, that will go up as I feel more comfortable in what I know about the NFL. I'll go, tweet out my $500 winner for the weekend on football, and then I'm looking at my customers playing $1,000, $1,500. Our cash game record, or my personal cash game record, the last 32 weeks of NFL is 27-5. Like, we take a lot of pride in helping guys win. And if you're putting real money into the weekend, $500, $1,000, what's a monthly membership for you? It's just another way to help you secure your investment. And again, I love the fact how we complement one another, because there is not only now 4 heads, which is better than 2, but I don't have some of the things that you have. And for people who don't want to spend a lot of time, we're just going to be more simplistic. And if you play both sites, now you're getting information for both. It's a really good complement to one another.
Absolutely. And I think that just to answer a question out there, we're all big on the why when we offer our plays. And the why I give you for the sites are this: you're not just buying a membership to get picks. You're buying a membership to learn a process of how you actually play this daily game. It's so much more difficult than just taking $5 and throwing it into a lottery ticket. There's an actual process. There's a reason. If you don't know, let's break it down to this. If you don't know why we're giving cash game picks and why we're giving GPP picks, that's a perfect reason to buy a membership if you're playing more than $25 a week, because there's a process to make sure that you actually play this game the right way and you don't just buy a lottery ticket every single week. You cannot be profitable without cash games, and you have no upside if you don't play in tournaments. And there is a process that goes into doing that, and that's why you buy a membership.
Definitely. So, hey, go check out dfscheatsheet.com. Go check out DFS 5-pack. We'll be back next week with these fellas, and we'll get you guys another video. And, hey, I hope you guys have a good week this week in NFL. Make a little bit of money MLB, and I'll talk to you guys later, all right? Peace out.
Thanks, guys.